Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining our first webinar for the first Psychiatry Consortium call for proposals. Today, we're going to give you an overview of the scope, eligibility, and the funding model. And also, you will have a chance to ask questions during the presentation, and we will address them at the end. So today, I'm joined here at the Medicine Discovery Catapult by my colleagues, Laura Ashram, Psychiatry Consortium Program Manager, Graham Wilkinson, Head of Virtual R&D, and Dan Bond, Digital Content Lead. I am Alessandra Gaita, the Program Director for Syndicates here at the Medicine Discovery Catapult, and I will be giving this presentation today. So in terms of what we're going to cover, we will provide a little bit of background on the Psychiatry Consortium and the key challenges and opportunities in psychiatric disease and what the strategic aims of the consortium to be years. And then we will delve into the scope of the funding call and go through some key eligibility and project criteria. And we will also then present on some expected outcomes of Psychiatric Consortium funded projects. What we will also cover is, in some detail, is the review process and process for approval for funding from the consortium partners. And finally, we will have a very brief overview of the funding and IP terms and conditions. The terms and conditions are also available on our website for downloading, and a lot more detail on the terms and conditions from that document. And in the end, we'll also aim to address some of your questions. Okay, so in terms of what I suppose brought this group of organizations together to set up this new initiative in psychiatric disease, is really the recognition that there are a number of challenges in this area, historical challenges, I suppose, in this area, which particularly in drug discovery in psychiatric disease, which are kind of summarized on this slide. First of all, it's the lack of new validated drug targets, and the very high rate of failure in clinical trials, primarily because of the very difficult translation from the preclinical stage into the clinical stage. And these challenges have led to a reduced investment from pharma in the last 10 years in psychiatric disease drug discovery. However, in the last couple of years in particular, there's also recognition that this area can provide significant opportunity as well. And this is mainly based on the fact that the understanding of the biology of psychiatric disease has improved significantly, also in light of the emerging genetic data that is available and can inform new efforts in drug discovery, which has really led to renewed interest from industry and pharma in particular, and an opportunity for reinvestment in this space. And last but not the least is that already significant academic efforts and expertise are developing in this area, and world-leading academic centers are already generating new targets. So in terms of the strategic aims of the Psychiatry Consortium, it's really around three main objectives. The first one is to enable a drug discovery pipeline by connecting academic innovation and expertise with industry expertise to robustly validate new therapeutic targets and strategy for psychiatric diseases. We also want to promote through the Psychiatry Consortium engagement across the research community globally and provide opportunities for funding, collaboration, and access to drug discovery, expertise, and capabilities available through the Psychiatry Consortium. And finally, we have an aim of providing an educational and nurturing environment to really encourage and, I suppose, increase the transfer of knowledge and skills cross-sector between academia and industry, and ultimately, hopefully, increase opportunities for collaboration in this space. So moving on to the scope of this first call, the Psychiatry Consortium is focused on the identification and validation of new drug targets to address unmet therapeutic needs of people with mental health conditions. The disease scope, to begin with, is going to be fairly broad. So all of the diseases listed on this slide are in scope of this first funding call. And these also include psychiatric symptoms associated with dementia. In terms of the key eligibility criteria, university and other research institutes worldwide will be able to apply. Projects can last up to 3 years, and the total eligible project cost can be between 200,000 and up to £1 million. Applications for most small companies may also be considered, either as a standalone or in collaboration with an academic institution or research institute. Moving on to the key project criteria. So to begin with, across the members of the consortium, we have generated an initial funding commitment of 3 million research funding to be distributed over 3 years to successful drug discovery projects funded through the Psychiatry Consortium. So these will be projects that are focused on novel molecular targets for psychiatric diseases that have some evidence that links that molecular target to human disease, and of that target modulation having a therapeutic effect. And that evidence can be further developed or validated through the Psychiatry Consortium funding scheme. In addition, we would also be looking for projects that enable validation of new tools that can be used to support drug discovery in psychiatric diseases. So, for example, optimization of existing tool compounds to improve selectivity, potency, bioavailability, but also to look, for example, at target engagement type of studies. In addition, academic researchers interested to apply will also be encouraged to provide evidence of research tools that they have access to that could strengthen the project, and generally assets that could be announced and validated through the Psychiatry Consortium funding scheme. In terms of the things that are not in scope, we will not fund projects focused on well-studied targets for psychiatric diseases. The focus here is very much on new targets. Projects where there's already been significant efforts in terms of drug discovery with advanced chemistry, for example, leading to candidate molecules, and where that would only be requiring, for example, in vivo PK studies or preclinical proof of concept type of studies. We will not fund non-pharmacological interventions. So again, the scope is very much on new drug targets. Purely academic explorations of new animal model or cellular model will not be in scope unless there is a direct application in the drug discovery path, for example, using that model as a tool for validating a new target. Repurposing of existing drugs will generally be out of scope unless that particular compound could be used for validating new molecular targets. and clinical trials are also not going to be in scope. In terms of the outcomes that we're looking to seek from projects funded through the consortium, it's really about generating a data package which provides evidence of target tractability, evidence of relevance to human disease, and improved tools to support further target validation and drug discovery efforts. In addition, we would also look to catalyze at program level transfer and exchange of knowledge and skills between academia and industry, and this will be done, as I mentioned, at a program level, but also at the project level, through close collaboration between the funded researcher with the Medicine Discovery Catapult, our partner CROs, as well as the funding partners. And we will also look to catalyze a cross-sector and advanced understanding of new innovative approaches for target identification and validation in psychiatric drug discovery, hopefully leading to faster translation to the clinic. In terms of what the Psychiatry Consortium will offer to successful applicants, this will include access to drug discovery expertise across the consortium member and our contract research organization partners, which will also provide access to drug discovery capabilities. Commercial know-how, obviously, is something else that the members of the Psychiatry Consortium can offer. And we will also provide project management support through the Medicine Discovery Catapult and project funding. So moving on to the next session, what we are going to do, we will give you a run through the process for the proposals review and approval for funding. Before we start with that, I just wanted to quickly share the governance structure of the Psychiatry Consortium. So at the top is the steering committee, which is a group of members of the Psychiatry Consortium, as well as non-member organizations such as the Wellcome Trust, which is supporting us through a grant to support primarily the academic outreach and engagement. And this group is mainly responsible to really set the strategic direction for the Psychiatry Consortium and provide ongoing oversight of progress. Then we have a scientific committee, which is the group of the funding partners of the Psychiatry Consortium, which will be responsible for the scientific review of the proposals that are submitted, and will be involved in a first assessment of those proposals. And then as those proposals move through the review process, they will be managed by the Medicine Discovery Catapult and the program manager based here, working very closely with the funded researchers, the partner CROs, as well as the funding partners to really develop those projects and then deliver them. So in terms of the key stages in the application and review process, this is a very high-level representation of the key stages involved. So what I'm going to go in more detail of each of these stages. The first step, of course, is the application submission, and that can be done online through registering your interest into the scheme and then applying through the online platform. From that, you will also have access to the application form and we'll get an idea of the sort of questions that we're gonna ask as part of that first proposal assessment. So in terms of the review and approval process, this is a stepwise process which begins with the expression of interest stage. So calls for proposals will be launched through the Psychiatry Consortium website. Interested applicants will be able to register on the website and then to submit their proposal. The first step will be a scope assessment of that proposal, which will be undertaken by the program manager based here at the Medicine Discovery Catapult. That will lead to the first, I suppose, point of decision for proposals that are in scope. They will be progressed to a target due diligence step. And what this will involve, based on the information provided in the application, we will undertake, in partnership with the partner CRO, a light touch due diligence on the target around IP, around published literature, and that will be mainly to inform an assessment around the feasibility of actually pursuing a drug discovery program around that particular targets, and really de-risk, I suppose, that initial step. Once that package of information is generated, we will submit that package of information. So that will include your application, your proposal with the outputs of the light touch due diligence will be submitted to the Psychiatry Consortium Scientific Committee. At that point, based on the information provided, scientific committee members will be able to express an interest in that particular proposal. And if there are at least 2 members of the scientific committee interested in funding that proposal will be moved to the next stage. At that point, obviously, we will inform the applicants of the outcome of that review. The second stage in this process is the project development stage. So this is where those applicants that are successful will start engaging very closely and collaboratively with the program manager here at Medicine Discovery Catapult and the partner CRO as relevant to develop around the proposal a project plan. And so that will involve developing the scope for the work and start outlining key milestones and costs associated with that project. Once that step is completed, that package of information would be shared with those interested members of the Psychiatry Consortium that expressed an interest in that particular proposals. And I suppose at that point, those members will be able to confirm that they're willing to, in principle, fund that project. From that point onwards, the project plans and various documents that needs to be finalized will be finalized, and that will lead to a final review step and eventually approval for funding from what we call at this point the project committee. So this would be the collective of those funding partners that are going to fund the project, the successful researcher, as well as the program manager and the partner CRO as relevant, and really working together as a project team to drive the delivery of that project going forward. So once the project is approved for funding, we will have to enter formal contractual arrangements between the various parties involved. So there are two key arrangements, I suppose, that will be required. Is a collaboration agreement between the institution that is funded by the consortium and the Medicine Discovery Catapult. And in this arrangement, the Medicine Discovery Catapult will act on behalf of the funding partners in that particular arrangement. And so we will be essentially acting as the legal entity on behalf of the funding partners who are funding that project. And then we will also be entering contracts with the partner CROs for relevant work packages that are going to be delivered at the CRO. Only if it's required at that point, we may undertake some feasibility work, and this is not always going to be required. We just wanted to however, mentioned that it could be a recommendation as part of developing that project that some feasibility work is done at the start to really just assess the feasibility of pursuing a wider program around that particular target. And there could be a chance, I suppose, of the outcome of that feasibility work being a no-go decision, which it's a possibility. But I suppose in any case, for those projects that are following the contracting step, we're looking to then move into basically the project launch. In terms of the delivery of the project, we will be looking really to deliver these in close collaboration and close working between the academic partner, the CRO partner, and the MDC program manager, who will coordinate the day-to-day management and communication around the project and offer relevant support to the external partners. We will be providing regular updates to the funding partners as well. And there will also be formal milestone review meetings, which will involve the project committee at key stages in the projects where that are maybe linked to a go, no-go decision. So that was the last step in terms of the process for reviewing and managing the project. I'm going to move on to the next section, which is an overview of funding and IP terms and conditions. So in terms of the funding, some of the key conditions from our terms and conditions include that the project funding will be subject to signature of the project collaboration agreement between the PI, host institution, and the medicine discovery output. The terms of funding and the finance schedule will be in accordance with project plan and the specific milestones and any go, no-go decision points associated with those milestones. And also the project funding will be subject to those project milestones being met, especially if they're linked to key no-go, go-no-go decisions point. In terms of the costs that will be covered under this funding scheme, this will include all eligible direct research costs associated with the project. And some examples are listed here on the slide. We will not fund, however, indirect costs, such as non-specific estimated cost, admin cost, and legal and HR costs. So in terms of the key terms around IP and exploitation, at a very high level, all results from a funded research project and the IP rights included in such results will be owned by the academic institution. The academic institution will grant the funding partner an exclusive right to use the results and any IP rights included in those results for commercial and non-commercial purposes, an exclusive and non-exclusive right to use the institution's background for the purpose of exploiting the results. And I should say, under point 1 and 2, any information around any chemical structures for tool compounds or lead compounds that it's either existent already at the submission stage or is generated under the project will not be shared with the funding partners. However, the funding partners will have an option to negotiate an exclusive or co-exclusive, depending if it's more than one funding partner, commercial license to the chemistry at the end of the project. So that was my last slide, I just wanted to say as well, there is additional information that you can access on the website. Our terms and conditions are very much an in-depth document that outlines the process that I just went through. We also have a privacy notice on our website that we would encourage you to read. And we will be available for questions and inquiries in the coming weeks. The call will close on the 22nd of November, so there's still a little bit of time. Hopefully, you feel that you have a better understanding of how this is going to work. And as I said, we still have a few weeks before the funding call closes. So feel free to get in touch with us to have individual discussions. And thank you very much for joining today. And hopefully we'll be in touch soon.